So in this video, we're going to be exploring print statements, and we're specifically going to look at how we can display text output to the screen using Python using these print statements. So to start, we're going to go into Python and we're going to create a new program called Unit 1 Lesson 4 Print Function. So I'm going to go in here, do a new replit. This time we're going to just use Python, not Python with turtle, but just Python. And then here we're going to name it Unit 1, Lesson 4, Print, I believe it was print function. Yeah, print. And now we're using just Python, remember, not Python with turtle, and print function. So here what we're going to do is we're going to start by using some basic print statements. So this is what a basic print statement looks here in blue. So here you'll notice you have the word print, parentheses at the beginning and the end, as well as quotations at the beginning and the end. So this is the simplest type of print statement that you'll be able to write. So here we're going to test this out so we can see what it actually looks like. So here we're going to start by writing print. Notice when I open up the parenthesis, it actually automatically closes it on the other side because it wants to remind you, hey, you have to close this parenthesis. We're then going to add quotes. You'll notice the same thing happens here. It adds in that quote so that you don't forget to close it later on. And here we're going to write, hello, Mrs. Conway. And we're going to go to the next line and do, this is my first program. And then do another print statement saying, this is a success. So if we run it now, what you will see out here is you will see that it prints each line. So each line where it says print, prints on its own line, and it prints out each line. Now here you'll see if we forgot a quotation or something like that, if we run it, it'll say we have an error because it's expecting a string literal. That's meaning it's expecting quotation. If you forget to close a parenthesis somewhere, so here say we forgot to close it, gonna again say invalid syntax and tell you it's on the, this is a success line, but really it's because you didn't close it up here. So this is the first type of print statement that you can use and make. The next type we're gonna look at is gonna have us using those quotation marks in different ways. So I'm gonna use this same program here and I'm gonna use this line, hello, comma, computer. So here we're going to be looking at something different. You'll see what I mean in a second. So here we have hello, comma, computer inside of quotations. And if you run it as is, you'll notice that it runs just like it did before. If you want, because you're probably noticing, well, hey, I put a blank line there, but there's not a blank line here. If you want a blank line, you need to do print with just blank quotations. Your computer ignores blank lines of code. So if you actually want a blank line, you just do a blank print statement. So you'll see we now have that there. So what we're going to do here is we're going to look at two different lines of code. We're going to look at what happens when we have hello, comma, computer inside of double quotes. And then we're going to look at what happens when we have hello in double quotes, a comma in the middle, and then computer in double quotes. So let's do that separate line here. So we'll have print, have hello in its own double quotes, and then have to go outside of those double quotes, do a comma, and then write computer in the next set of double quotes. So just look at the slight differences here, comma on the inside of the double quotes, comma on the outside of the double quotes. And if we run that, you'll notice that there is no comma. You'll notice the comma inside the double quotes prints the comma, a comma outside the double quotes does not. Now, what's really happening here is that a comma inside the double quotes is telling your computer, I want to print a comma. A comma outside the double quotes basically adds a space between the two and then does what's called concatenate or adds them together. So where a comma is really helpful is if you have variables in there because you can actually push all the variable values together. But here you continue to put commas. We'll just put another word there. Maybe we want to do an exclamation point. If you continue to do commas outside of the double quotes, they're going to put spaces in that spot instead. So you'll notice hello, where the comma was, there's a space, computer, where the comma was, there's a space, world, where the comma was, there's a space, and then there's the exclamation point. So noticing how we can use double quotes and commas in different ways to print different types of print statements. And as I said, this comma is really helpful when we start having to print variable values to the screen. That's the first thing you need to know about print statements. You have to know how to print basic ones and then how commas are used, and they're used to add spaces inside of it. I'm going to put another blank line here. Then we're going to look at the next slide. So the next thing we're going to look at is what happens if we want to have a multi-line print statement. So here I'm going to print this to the screen. Do print quotations, do the word hello underneath it, then the word computer beneath it, and close it out. So here I'm going to do print, and then I'm going to tab in a little bit and do the word hello, do the word computer, and then I'm going to double check that this looks like that. Yep. So here you'll already notice it's telling you that something is wrong. Now, if you try to run it, because you're like, well, hey, I have a print statement here. You try to run it, it's going to get mad. And that's because print statements with a single double quote all need to take place on a single line here. So you'll notice here we have a single line quote without a comma. This is just a basic print statement. Then I'm going to make this a little larger so that fits. Then here we have comma, adds a space. And what we're noticing here is that we can't have a single quote and then press enter. If you want to have a multi-line print statement like this, what you need to do is you need to add in 3 sets of double quotes. So 3 sets here and then 3 sets here. So you'll notice I have double quote, double quote, double quote, double quote, double quote, double quote. Doing so allows you to do a multiple line print statement. And what these triple double quotes do is they print the message exactly as is. So that means between those triple double quotes, it will print things exactly. Enters, spaces, everything that you have written out. So here you can see how this now looks a little different. It includes our tabs, it includes our enters, and it lines everything up as we have here. So if you want things to if you want a print statement to span multiple lines, you need to use triple quotes. So we've now learned a couple of different things. We've learned about the basic print statement. We've learned that commas add a space. We have learned about the triple, oh, I actually can't add this comment there. It has to be added down here because it's continuing that. So this is a multi-line comment. You use the triple double quotes to do that. Now we've learned about 3 different items using print statements. So let's look at the next one. So what we're going to do now is we're going to try to print this shape to the screen using this triple double quote idea. So here I'm going to do my triple double quote. So I have that here. I'm going to close it out down here. And then I'm going to put my shape in between. So I'm going to kind of line it up. So I'm going to have a baseline, which is so. And then I'm going to line up the next one. Go. Do some spaces, line up the next one. Now, if I only wanted 2 lines there, I could do this. There we go. Now we've got that basic shape. And we think because we're using the triple double quotes that this is going to work exactly as we have it written. But if we run it, you'll notice that your computer gets a little confused when you have all of those spaces in there. So what we can do is we can actually line things up at the end of each line and make sure that every single line here ends in the same spot, and that will result in this shape appearing as we want. So here you'll notice that we have our shape, but what's happening and what the problem is and why it's printing like this is because we have each line ending in a different spot. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the furthest out line and I'm going to put a dot at the end of it. And then I'm going to go and each line I'm going to space out until it lines up. And I'm going to put a dot at the end. And what this is doing is this is making sure that every single line of text ends in the same spot. Now, if I run this, it fixes our problem. So it's kind of a unique little problem with that multiple line comment. If you're trying to make shapes and you're using spaces, Every single line needs to end in the exact same spot. So if you don't like those dots at the end, now that they end in the same spot, you can go through and you can delete those dots because they're still going to end in the same spot. So now we're going to move on to the next type. Here, this is what we've learned so far. We've learned that we have our basic print statement, which prints the exact message in quotes to the screen and places an enter after the string. We then can do a string, comma, string, comma, so on and so forth with commas outside the double quotes. And that prints one message after another. The commas connect those strings together, and the commas put a space everywhere that they exist. And then we have our triple double quotes, which prints exactly what's inside of those triple double quotes, enters and spaces included. These are the three main print functions that you need to be aware of. Now from here, we're going to look at a couple of different special things that go along with print statements. We're going to type this line of code right here into Python. So I'm going to copy that over. You'll notice here that the only difference in this code is you'll notice this little /t. And this /t is actually going to do something. So this is going to print my name is Sarah. But then that /t is going to do something in our program. So let's run it and see what happens. And what I notice is that Sarah seems to be tabbed over a little bit. So what this /t does is it allows you to add in tabs, and you can add in as many as you want. You can do another /t. You can actually put them right next to each other and it will double tab. You can put a tab here and it will tab after name. So you can see it's adding in tabs. So when you have a /t inside of your double quotes, it's actually going to tab over. So that /t tabs over. It doesn't actually appear as a /t, it creates a tab. The other thing we can do is we can add a /n. So we're using that forward slash, not a backslash, a forward slash. And here we're going to do /n. And what you'll notice here is that the /n appears to add an enter. You'll notice every time I add a /n, it basically creates a new line, and that is what that N stands for. That N stands for new line. So if you add a /t, it adds a tab. If you add a /n, it adds a new line. So that's what's going on here. So you have these two new pieces of information that you can use as you write your print statements. Finally, we're going to look at numbers in print statements. We're going to look at two different things. We're going to look at 7 plus 2 inside of double quotes and 7 plus 2 not inside of double quotes. So here, let's go ahead and add this. We have print 7 plus 2. We have print 7 plus 2. So you'll notice that these appear in slightly different colors. That's because they actually work differently. Those double quotes around numbers mean something different. And what you'll notice here is that if we put double quotes around numbers, it prints them exactly as they appear inside of the double quotes. If you put 7 plus 2 without double quotes, because they're numbers and you can actually perform operations on numbers, it will actually perform that operation and then print that to the screen. So we know that 7 plus 2 is 9, so it's going to actually print that to the screen. So quotations, as I said, print characters written exactly, just like a string. No quotes, the computer will actually do the mathematics here. So let's look at a couple of different examples and how these might result if we were to actually print them to the screen. So here, if I look very, very closely at these, I notice that this first one has 7 times 3 plus 4 equals, all in double quotes. That tells me that's going to appear on the screen as double quotes. So it's going to say 7 times 3 plus 4 equals, and then it has a comma, which tells me it's going to put a space, and then 5 times 5 is not in quotes, so it's going to write 25. So that is what is going to print to the screen as a result of that statement. Now, if I look at this next line, what I notice is that I have the same beginning, 7 times 3 plus 4 equals inside of double quotes, but I'm missing a comma. The lack of a comma between these double quotes and this number without double quotes is actually going to result in an error because it needs to have the comma in there between items that are inside and outside of double quotes. This next line here, I notice the entire thing is not inside of double quotes, so I know this is going to perform the math. And if I follow the order of operations, I have 3 times 5, which is 15, plus 6, which is 21. So this is going to print 21 to the screen. This next one here says print, and then it has hello inside. And while it looks like it's going to print the word hello to the screen, because these are not numbers, they need to print and have, or in order to print, they need to have double quotes around them. So the lack of double quotes around those letters is going to result in an error. It needs the double quotes around it in order to actually print because it is not a number. Then from here, this next one is going to print this part in quotes first. So it's going to print my results, colon, the comma right here means it's going to add a space. And then it's going to perform the math here using order of operations. So 8 times 6 is 48. 48 divided by 4 is 12. And then finally, this last line here, I notice there's no double quotes around these numbers, so it's going to perform the math. So 14 minus 6 is 8. The comma results in a space. 15 times 10 is 150. The comma results in a space. And then we have a 4. You can see how those commas and those uses of double quotes really does make a difference in printing and can result in some errors as well along the way.